So again, if I'm writing 12 and a half kilometers, KM is the abbreviation for kilometers, per day, and we're doing this for an entire week, first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out how many kilometers am I biking in a week. So I'm going to multiply 12 and a half or 12 and 5 tenths by 7. The first thing I'm going to do when I do this is I'm actually going to move the decimal over in 12 and a half one time, which is the same as multiplying that by 10. Um, which means that my answer of 125 times 7 is going to be 10 times bigger than the actual answer that I should have. So 125 by 7 gives me this, 875. But since we're 10 times bigger, I'm going to have to divide that answer by 10, which means moving the decimal back one time, which means 87 and a half, or 87 and 5 tenths kilometers. Now that's over the course of an entire week. Now, what I want to talk about today is converting in the metric system between kilometers and some other units of measurement. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, in the metric system, the base unit for length or distance is the meter. We have the meter. Now, remember, a meter is about the size of a yard. A meter is slightly bigger than a yard. We had meter sticks at school, so you have a good idea of what a meter is. Now, we have two units that we're going to talk about that are smaller than a meter. The first unit is called a centimeter, and the second unit, which is smaller, is called a millimeter. The unit that we're going to talk about that is bigger than a meter is a kilometer. Now, we've already talked about the fact that kilo, this prefix kilo, literally means 1,000. So if you see kilometer or kilometer, that literally means 1,000 meters. Now, if we go in the opposite direction, we see this C, which stands for centi or centa, and that prefix literally means 100. Now, what that means is it means that we're taking a meter and we're splitting it into 100 parts. A centimeter is about the width of your pinky, and would be about the size of a centimeter. Now, a millimeter, by the way, a centimeter then means it would take 100 of those to make a meter. A millimeter, so we have this prefix milli, means a thousandth, just like we talked about yesterday. A thousandth, literally meaning it would take 1,000 millimeters to make a meter. And if you're curious, it would take 10 of these. So if I multiply this by 10, I would get a centimeter. So we have these different units of measurement that we can talk about. So if I go back to my bicycle measurement here, 87 and a half kilometers. And if I wanted to figure out if I had 87 and a half kilometers and I wanted to know how many meters is that, one thing that we could do is we could say, well, we know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So if I wanted to know how many meters 87 and a half kilometers would be, I know that it's going to take a lot more meters because they're a lot smaller. I know that I'm going to have to multiply each of those by 1,000 because there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Now, the cool thing here is we've already talked about a really quick way to multiply by 1,000. Remember, multiplying by 1,000 is the same thing as multiplying by 10 3 times. And every time we multiply by 10, we're just moving that decimal over one time. So if I wanted to multiply by 10, by 10, by 10, the zero in these spaces, I now figure out that I, in a normal week, would ride 87,500 meters. Now, just by multiplying and dividing by tens, hundreds, and thousands, we can easily convert within the metric system. So today we're going to be practicing converting between millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers by using the information of what these prefixes mean and by multiplying by tens, hundreds, and thousands.